So it's quite early in the morning here for me. So I think the topic of our next conversation is staying awake. So why do community managers have to stay awake? What does that mean?
You know, have you ever heard about getting in a rut? Living your life based on past assumptions, or if you're a facilitator, Chris Argyris's ladder of inference. We operate on a daily basis based on patterns of the past that inform our present. So it's like you're driving down the street and you come to a stoplight. And, you know, if it's green, we keep going. If it's red, we stop. If we yellow, it depends on who we are. We either speed up to get through or we slow down to stop. But the point is we don't stop and think, oh, what does this thing mean? What does this color mean? We have these things programmed in so that our brain can just kick in and do it. This is great for many of the tasks that we have to repeat as a person who's facilitating or managing a community. However, it is also our biggest blind spot. And there's one thing we know about online groups, particularly more open-ended or open-boundaried networks that are less than a defined thing with lots less shared rules or shared intent, is that our assumptions about what's going on can be totally wrong, and our assumptions about past behavior informing current action may be wrong. So a community manager is one of those people who has to pay attention in lots of different ways. Part of that is a set of physical skills. Can you scan things quickly? Can you pay attention to multiple inputs and do that multitasking? But the other part of it is the reflective side of staying awake, which is kind of stopping and sitting back and saying, well, what does this mean? From whose perspective? As we've talked in another conversation about the three perspectives of the sponsor, the manager, and the participant, it is of the context of what's going on now. So I think it's really important to be a good community facilitator or network weaver is to stay awake and pay attention, and then to be open that your interpretation of it is your interpretation of it.
Hearing a lot about technological listening tools, right? You know, so sentiment analysis, metrics, modules on community management platforms. Do we have to do this thing ourselves? Can we just leave it to our machines to keep us awake?
No, I don't think we can leave it to the machines, and I don't think we can leave it just to ourselves, unless we're dealing with a very small group. So if you're with a small group, you can read everything, you can reflect on everything, and that's fine. Let's set that situation aside. I think a lot of us are operating in either large communities or open, unbounded networks, in which case it is not humanly possible to pay attention to everything. Thus, things like sentiment analysis, aggregation of keywords, persistent searches, hashtags, these things are really important to help us compress down what we actually scan. However, what I notice, sentiment analysis is coming off of Facebook, what is considered positive or negative is not a good measure to rely upon. What they are is signals that says I should pay attention to something. Because the way these automated things interpret, they can't always take in the context and, frankly, the craziness of human beings. So what we want are things that trigger closer examination, and we need to think about what balance of automation, what balance of human attention we want to bring to this.
So, what are the signs that we should look out for that we're in danger of going into autopilot?
Well, not noticing when there's increases or decreases of activity. Thinking that everything is either horrible or positive, because life is that space in between. So when everything looks too rosy or too negative, I have to stop and ask myself, what is I'm seeing? Those are some of my quick triggers. What are some of yours?
I think the it's too quiet scenario. So nothing seems to be happening, everything seems to be ticking over, and I think it's important to remember that as in the Sherlock Holmes story, it's something about the dog that didn't bark.
And I think also it is appropriate to look at rhythms and patterns, but also, particularly if you're in a very open or very emergent or very expanding context, is don't assume past patterns will inform current work.